Inter played against Juventus in the historic Italian derby. 8 balls for the match, 5 of which were only in the first half. Just fantastic. Arsenal couldn't overcome Liverpool at home. Mo Salah helped the scouts take home the whole point. Coaching scandal in El Clasico. It became known why Ancelotti went for Flick. Pedro Porro is in the sights of Real Madrid and Manchester City. And a new goalkeeper for Barcelona. The Catalans have found who to buy to replace Ter Stegen. We're discussing this and more today. Friends, this is Football Dose and a hot selection of the most interesting news to this hour. Charge your royal likes and we will continue to work without weekends. Well, I wish you a pleasant appetite and a pleasant viewing. Jurgen Klopp warmly welcomed Arne's slot at the end of last season before leaving Liverpool. The German, along with the stands, chanted the name of the Dutch coach, thereby expressing his full confidence in him. I do not exclude that a similar attitude from such a respected person also positively affected the start of Slot's career in Liverpool. The Dutchman ultimately became a worthy successor to Klopp and set a unique achievement that even the German could not surpass. Pep Guardiola is also expected to end his era in Manchester after this season. The Catalan's successor has not been named. But in one of the recent episodes I mentioned how Brazilian goalkeeper Ederson gave a little insight and said that the club's management already knows who will take over the team after Guardiola. Then I assumed that someone from the pair, Xabi Alonso-Ruben Amorim, would take the place of the mountain guide. But there is also another contender for the coaching chair of Manchester City. In one of the recent interviews, Guardiola praised the Girona coach Michel Sanchez and said that the high level of Savinho is his merit. The coach of the Catalan team was previously considered for the job of a mountain guide, but it seemed to me that he lacked experience to work in such a big club. There's also an impression that he lacks tactical flexibility to lead Manchester City. I still hold such a point of view. Still, Mitchell looks like the weakest among the listed candidates. But perhaps the City leadership thinks otherwise. Maybe in the near future, we will even hear some rumors confirming the seriousness of Manchester City's intentions regarding the Spanish coach. His style suits, particularly when contrasted with Manchester City this season. Playing with 3 defenders, using wide attacks with flanking forwards, involving fullbacks in the build-up and in the final phase. Guardiola is currently using a similar tactic at Manchester City, not excluding that he is trying to prepare the team for Mitchell's arrival in this way. And why not? Guardiola is a master at his craft, and he has enough resources to experiment throughout the season. Or maybe it's just the modern trend in football that all young coaches are striving for. Regardless, Mitchell could fit into Manchester City and become a worthy successor to Guardiola. But will he be the best of the available options? That, of course, is the question. Real Madrid has significant defensive weaknesses, among other issues. In addition to losing their mental leader and main right fullback Dani Carvajal, they only have 2 central defenders left in their squad. These are Antonio Rudiger and Eder Militao, but they are not iron, and the season is just gaining momentum. Accordingly, they will be more and more tired and less able to keep up with the attacking opponents. A good example we could see in the match against Barcelona, where sometimes yards played a decisive role. Florentino Perez didn't consider this outcome while pursuing Kylian Mbappe's transfer during the summer window. He would have been better off focusing his attention on the defense, where there is a clear shortage of staff, and buying someone for this position. It would also have been good to sign an alternative for Toni Kroos. Otherwise, there's no one to give out the radio-controlled passes in the midfield. But that's a topic for another news. Now let's focus our attention on the defender's transfer. Perez dislikes January transfers, but he must strengthen the squad now. Otherwise, the team may not handle the current season's pressures. A severe imbalance was observed in Madrid. Several top performers are vying for a place in the attack, while there are only 1 or 2 defenders to speak of. It's unusual to see such short-sighted squad planning at Real. Usually on the bench, there's at least someone who can play in several positions and fill a gap if necessary. And here, they have to bring up the youth. But Ancelotti is not famous for his ability to develop players from the academy. He prefers working with experienced footballers. But I digress again. Perez urgently needs to buy a center-back in the winter window. According to the source, his gaze falls on the player Al Nassr Emery Laporte. The Spaniard is ready to return to European football. Like many, he did not appreciate the beauty of Saudi Arabia and wants to play in the elite division again. But Perez will have to face competition. Real's president is not alone in seeking the Spanish defender's services. Atletico Madrid and Paris Saint-Germain are also shortlisted. Paris also lacks a strong defensive line, and management had their eyes on Leopold since last summer. The head coach wanted to work with him again, as they had during his time leading the Spanish national team. However, if we believe the words of journalist José Dios from the Marca portal, Leopold prefers to return to Spain. And this means that Atletico and Real have a slightly better chance of his transfer. Real Madrid lost to Lille in the Champions League and to Barcelona in La Liga. This is the only defeat in the last 14 matches of the season, but they are very sick. The loss to the French team cost Real Madrid a long unbeaten streak in the Champions League. Meringue had to pay a similar price for the defeat in the duel with Barcelona. The Val Clasico score dealt a blow to the Madridistas' self-esteem. Florentino Perez began to slowly regret his decision to keep Carlo Ancelotti. But he had nowhere to go. No one would understand if the Italian left the team, having made a golden double. From the season's start, the leaky team's game had visible problems. Real easily plays against teams that are afraid of him and sit deep in defense. But those who oppose the leaky ones have a great chance of success, even if it's not a European grant. Real had some minor problems with the humble Celtic recently, all because the new Celtic coach is bringing his aggressive football, regardless of the level of the opponent. And this seems to unsettle Real. They hope that they will be feared and probably build their tactics based on the opponent's low defensive line. But if he tries to bite back and counterattack, that's where the problems start for the Celts. In that match, they were only able to beat the Celts thanks to luck. But the next game against Barcelona confirmed Real's inability to play against a team that doesn't show fear when they see the Celts. This also shows that the Madrid coach doesn't have a plan B. After Barcelona scored 2 goals, Madrid didn't make any changes in the game. The footballers continued to do the same as before, only with less enthusiasm. Their outlook faded and the result was on the scoreboard. The absence of a plan B is the head coach's direct fault. He should take into account different match scenarios, but Ancelotti stubbornly sticks to the same sloppy football, which leads to such failures as in the games against Barcelona and Lille. The worse Real Madrid performs in the upcoming matches, the more pressure will grow on Carlo Ancelotti, and the more Florentino Perez will work on bringing Xabi Alonso. The Spanish manager could be invited even this winter, if things are really bad. Even before Marc-Andre ter Stegen's injury, his game did not cause any excitement. For instance, his uncertainty spread to the entire team during the Monaco match. A scared goalkeeper means trouble. As a result, the Catalans lost that match. As strange as it may sound, ter Stegen's injury put an end to Barca's poor performances in the Champions League. The Catalans easily overcame Young Boys in Bavaria when Iñaki Peña was in goal. And it looks like I'm trying to give credit where it's due. But try to remember how ter Stegen played in the Euro Cups. He appears to have a fear of international competitions. And I suspect that this happened during the times when Barca was suffering humiliating defeats from Roma, Liverpool, and Bavaria in the Champions League. Back then, Marc was in goal for all the matches. He's the only one who remained from the old guard in the ranks of the Catalans. And there's a feeling that he still has bleeding wounds from those painful blows. Barcelona's backup goalkeeper lacks experience. He's almost like a blank slate, and under Flick's guidance, he's making strides. Have you even seen how he performed against Real? Barcelona's goalkeeper's crucial performance demoralized the white uniformed players in many ways. If this continues, Pena might push ter Stegen out of the starting lineup. However, the management still lacks complete confidence in the La Masia graduate. The club will gradually start looking for a new goalkeeper. If the bet on Pena doesn't pay off, the Catalans will buy Kepa in the summer. According to the source, the Blue Garnets are now eyeing Lille goalkeeper Lucas Chevalier. He has already managed to make a name for himself in the Champions League and win the hearts of those fans who had not heard of him before this season. I personally was impressed after his game with the Slivovitz. He's a very agile goalkeeper with good reflexes and excellent footwork. He possesses the qualities to be among the best in his role. They're requesting a minor sum of money for him. Lille values Schweiz at 20 million euros. And if Barcelona gets money from the sponsorship contract with Nike, it won't be difficult for them to allocate such an amount for a prospective striker. At age 34, Kyle Walker is consistently in Manchester City's starting lineup. Since the start of the season, Walker has become a rotation player, participating in only 5 Premier League matches. and twice as a substitute. The press is discussing his potential transfer to the Saudi Arabian League. It is reported that Al Ahly club is interested in acquiring Walker for 20 million euros. For City management, this could be a successful option to get a good sum for the not-so-young player, whose contract with the club is valid until 2026. With Walker's potential exit, City will likely seek his replacement. And it seems, to solve this problem, the club will again turn to Tottenham, as it already did during the transfer of Walker himself. Now, the Spaniard Pedro Porro, who played all the matches this season for Sporting, has come under the City's sights. Tottenham values the player at 80 million euros. At first, it seems like a rather large sum, but we're talking about a transfer from one English club to another. Transfers within the Premier League immediately increase the value of players by 20%. Plus, the market is already inflated. Clubs have already paid similar money for defensive footballers. Not so long ago, City spent 90 million euros to buy Aymeric Laporte. Though initially seeming overpriced, Laporte flourished under Guardiola's guidance. And now he is a real threat both in defense and in attack. But not only City is interested in the Tottenham defender, but also Real Madrid. The Spanish club seeks a replacement for the aging Carvajal and is considering Porro as an option. However, the main candidate for Real remains Trent Alexander-Arnold, who can move for free if he decides to leave Liverpool. In case of Trent's refusal, Porro may become a priority target for the scouts. However, in Guardiola's disposal, there is already a right-back with huge potential, Rick Lewis, whom Pep himself recently noted for maturity in the game. But considering the philosophy of the citizens, they always need to have several equal compositions, so they can quite afford to allow you to purchase Porro. Babke's not a problem. Manchester United has suffered another loss. In the last round, the Red Devils managed to make a comeback in the match against Brentford, and Ten Hag's bald head remains safe for another week. But MU lost to crisis-ridden West Ham, whose coach is also on the verge of dismissal. It was that kind of match where it's hard to blame the coach for the negative result. It was a whirlwind of events that made West Ham the winner of the match. The first factor I would probably call is the team's terrible execution. I don't know what Ten Hag needs to do to prevent Dio Guadalot from missing open goals from a comfortable position. In terms of execution, MU is the worst Premier League team. The Red Devils played for 14 scored balls, but only scored 8. Consequently, they have a severe points shortage, placing them 14th in the table. The defeat can also be attributed to the failure of certain individuals in the MU lineup. Garnacha probably had one of his worst performances in a United jersey. He shot at the goal 3 times and missed every time, but things are even worse with control. Believe it or not, he managed to lose the ball 16 times. That's if you believe the SofaScore portal. One such loss cost the team a missed goal. West Ham's counterattack started from her. And of course, it's worth talking separately about the refereeing in the last minutes of the match. The main referee appointed a rather controversial penalty after consulting with video assistant referee and a long review of the replay. In my view, inks began falling before making contact with the MU player. He probably wasn't simulating, but it seems like his own teammate knocked him down. The ref missed it and MU lost. Of course, this is all justification for the poor. Just an analysis of what led to the defeat of the Red Devils. And it's hardly possible to blame Ten Hag in it. But the Dutchman did nothing to make United the machine it should be, considering the amount of money spent. It took Hunteflick just 2 months to turn Barcelona around. So that's the distinguishing feature of a top coach. The specialist can work in tough conditions while Ten Hag just spends frivolously. And feedback is just sweet talk from the Dutchman. It seemed that after the defeat from an even worse team, MU would immediately announce the termination of the contract here. For now, silence. Still, I expect his dismissal soon. He overdid it. The team overdid it. They just weren't made for each other. And the last 2 years are proof of that. Do you remember the look on Hunteflick's face after Bayern made a mockery of Barcelona in the Champions League 4 years ago? If you don't remember, it's flickering on your screens right now. How do you like such a reaction to the historic victory of your team? Not impressive, right? Fans are not accustomed to seeing emotions from the German coach. He usually sits with a stone-faced expression regardless of the score. But since his appointment in Barcelona, he seems to have changed. He caught the Xavi virus and started reacting more beautifully to what's happening on the field. Flick became increasingly appealing and surprised, all in such a spirit. Did you see how the coach does a somersault during the match? And I didn't see it, but Flick did a flip when he saw Lewandowski not realizing a 100% moment. Nearly all Barcelona fans reacted this way at the time. How could one miss in that episode? There's nothing easier than rolling a comfortable ball into an empty net from a favorable position, but Robert hit the carcass, after which the ball left the field. Despite scoring 2 goals, Polyak could have easily scored a hat-trick. This would have been a historic achievement. No one had ever scored 4 goals in El Clasico before. However, the circumstances prevented Robert from etching his name into the annals of Spanish football. But not only the head coach of Barcelona surprised us in that match. The score on the scoreboard is self-explanatory, but the goalkeeper of the Catalans, Wojciech Szczesny, also stood out. He did not participate in the match itself, and luckily, he had a great game. However, the Pole stood out in the warm-up. I didn't expect this was possible under Flick's leadership. He smoked openly during the team's celebration. The Tsar would have been proud. The video with Arne, like other cult moments from the world of football, as always, you will find in our Telegram channel. The link is in the pinned comment and in the description. We've finally reached the mark of 40,000 subscribers. So it's time to hold a contest there and start moving towards a new goal of 50,000. So let's go, friends. Before the Real Madrid versus Barcelona match, expectations were high for an intense game, primarily due to the players' on-field behavior. Only Vinicius was supposed to bring the level of passion to the limit, but the Brazilian was surprisingly modest. Of course, there were his classic antics with the referee, but otherwise his behavior could hardly be called provocative. And after the second miss, like the entire Royal Club, he dropped his eyes to the floor and allowed Barcelona to play as they wanted. Passions flared up only twice during the match. One of them happened on the coach's bench, and the cause was Flick's assistant and his furious reaction to the 4th missed ball. After the final whistle, Ancelotti approached the Barcelona coach, but he didn't extend his hand as usual. Instead, he scolded the German coach with a pointed finger, a moment that many noticed during the broadcast, but which the directors didn't pay much attention to. Fans were left to guess why the experienced Italian attacked Flick. But after the game, the cards were laid on the table. As I said, it was all about the assistant to the head coach of Barcelona. Marcus Zorg enthusiastically celebrated the Catalans' 4th goal right in front of Real's camera. Dono and Ancelotti did not like this. And who could possibly like such a thing? So the mood couldn't get any worse. And then comes your persistent colleague. The Italian wanted to show Zorg that you can't behave like this at such a level. The assistant spoiled the game, but the coaches talked and resolved the conflict in the end. This was confirmed by the coaches of both Real Madrid and Barcelona. The German press notes that Zorc is behaving provocatively, not for the first time. Against Bayern, he also spoke in elevated tones with Munich's reserve goalkeeper Sven Ulreich. We have to get used to the fact that Barcelona now has its own provocateur. Only he sits in the coaching staff, not running around the field. Even the normally composed Ancelotti lost his cool. If only he could cross paths with Mourinho or another hard-nosed coach with a similar temperament. It's been a while since there was a fight on the coaching bridge. But in yesterday's classic, there was almost a brawl involving Vinicius. We're used to how the Brazilian complains to the referees and demands various kinds of penalties for his opponents. Usually he gets away with this, although ideally any provocative appeal to the referee should result in a yellow card. But the referees, it seems, are afraid, and what if they are also accused of being racists? Among the Barca players, no one paid attention to Vinicius' shouts either, until Gavi appeared on the field. Such provocations won't work with the young Spaniard. He promptly informed the Brazilian that he would address any of his attention-seeking behavior. Once, Gavi even chatted with him, affectionately draping an arm around his neck. The conflict ended, but Vinicius began keeping a lower profile. Although the match was nearing its end, and there simply wasn't much time left to see new fouls against Barcelona's players. Hummels had an outstanding last season with Borussia Dortmund. His leadership qualities and ability to play in the backline allowed the Germans to reach the Champions League final. He can be called the main architect of the team's success last season. But Hummels did not renew his contract with Borussia. He left amid a conflict with head coach Edin Terzic. The Bosnian also left the club, but on his own initiative. After such a season, Hummels must have had many options for continuing his career, but he managed to find a club for himself only after the transfer window closed. Roma signed him as a free agent in September. It seemed that Hummels was supposed to become the leader of the Roman defense, considering his experience and merits in the past season, but expectations clashed with reality. Hummels not only failed to lead the defensive lines of Rome, he didn't even appear on the field for 2 months. The German was benched for 7 matches and was omitted from the squad once more. He only started against Fiorentina, but his debut was unsuccessful. His team let in 5 goals, and Hummels himself nailed the final nail in the coffin. Roma's head coach, Ivan Jurjevic, explains the German's rare appearances on the field are purely due to technical reasons. He claims to only let out the strongest, and in his eyes, Hummels is not one of them. I choose the lineup based on what I see in training. I play those who give me the most confidence. Age and resume don't matter. It's a technical choice, once said a coach. After such a start, Hummels thought about leaving Rome. His contract is only for a year, but the German is not going to endure and sit on the bench for substitutes one after another. Under this coach's leadership, he sees no future and wants to leave in the winter transfer window. And according to the old good tradition, clubs from America and Saudi Arabia are interested in him. Specific clubs are not named, but seeing how many Major League Soccer teams are struggling, Hummels will come in handy for them. As for moving to Saudi Arabia, it's just a question of what kind of career the German wants after his Roman period. As usual, if he's interested in earnings, then welcome to the Middle East. If he wants to enjoy the game and live in a comfortable environment, then it would be more logical to choose the American League. It seemed like Arsenal was playing against Liverpool, but why then did Manchester City win? As Harry Lineker said, 22 people play football, but the Germans always win. So, within the Association for Programming Languages, there is its own version of this saying. No matter what happens during the season, City ends up winning. The teams had a great match. They frequently threatened each other's goals. But for a long time, Arsenal was leading the match. He scored first, but Liverpool quickly caught up. By halftime, Morena scored his first goal for the Gunners, putting them in the lead again. Liverpool seemed destined to suffer their second Premier League defeat. But after one successful attack, Salah faced the goalkeeper one-on-one. He had no trouble getting past David Ray, and no more goals were scored. But such a draw doesn't personally disappoint me. And do you know what really upsets any true football fan? The match schedule coincided with the Arsenal versus Liverpool game and the intense Derby d'Italia clash. The confrontation between Inter and Juventus. There was also something to see there, and had to break up between these 2 bouts. The Derby of Italy can be called a real football feast. The teams didn't know what a midfield was. They quickly advanced the ball to attack the opponent's goal. That's why such a score was fixed on the scoreboard. The teams scored 5 goals each in the first half. In the second, they added another 3. The match ended with a score of 4-4. Be sure to check out the review of this fantastic, and I'm not afraid of this word, historic match on our Telegram channel. You'll find last Sunday's highlights there. The match is worth watching in its entirety. I highly recommend it to anyone who didn't see it live. Besides, I was impressed by the game of Francisco Conceição. The guy's style reminds me of a young Sebastian Giovinco. This legend's dedication helped Juventus recover from a 4-2 deficit to secure a crucial point. And today on everyone, thank you for watching and subscribing to the channel. Friends, I now have my own radio show, Radio Shenson America. Listen to me there. Link in the video description. Well, my name is Kirill Cast, and that was your daily dose of football. Peace to your house and Johanga, friends.